My name is Samuel, and if you had asked me a year ago if I was a good Christian, I would have said yes without a moment's hesitation. I wasn't just a Sunday Christian, I was an every-day-of-the-week Christian. I was a deacon in my church, I led a weekly men's Bible study, and my wife Sarah and I never missed a chance to serve. We volunteered at bake sales, organized community outreach, and our tithe was always the first check we wrote each month. My life was a fortress built on the rock of faith. I prayed when I woke up, and before I slept. I read a chapter from Proverbs every day. I believed in God, in Jesus, and in the promise of heaven. But if I'm being honest, I never really believed in hell, not a real burning hell. To me, it was a story for the Old Testament, a metaphor to scare people into behaving. I believed that a God of love, a God of grace, would never create a place of eternal, hopeless pain. I thought that as long as you accepted Jesus and tried your best, you were safe. Your ticket was punched. That belief was the foundation of my life, and I never imagined it could be shaken. Until the day it wasn't just shaken, it was shattered into a million pieces. It was a Tuesday evening in October. The sky was weeping a cold, steady rain that made the roads slick and dark. I was driving home from a late elders meeting at the church. I remember feeling a sense of satisfaction, a quiet pride in my service. We had planned the upcoming fall festival, and I had volunteered to oversee the entire event. Someone has to step up, I had thought to myself, feeling a little more righteous than the other men who had families to get home to. As I drove, my mind drifted. I thought about a young man who had started coming to our church. He had tattoos up his arms and piercings in his ears. He sat in the back, looking uncomfortable. I said a quick prayer for him, but it was a prayer of pity. Lord, help him find the right path, the way I have, I prayed, my heart filled not with love, but with a quiet judgment. I saw him as a project, a soul to be fixed, not a brother to be loved. That was my last thought before the headlights appeared. A truck, hydroplaning across the wet median, swerved directly into my lane. I remember the blinding yellow lights, the shriek of tires fighting a losing battle against the water, and then a sound like thunder and tearing metal. The world spun violently, and a terrible, crushing weight pressed down on me. Then, silence. A deep, profound, and painless blackness. I didn't feel my body anymore. The rain, the cold, the jagged pain, it was all gone. I was floating in a peaceful nothingness. For a moment, I thought, this is it. I'm going home. A pinprick of light appeared in the distance, and it grew, pulling me toward it with a gentle but irresistible force. The light was not just bright. It was warm. It was alive. It felt like love itself. As I drew closer, a figure began to form within the light. I couldn't see a face, but I felt a presence so powerful and pure that I knew I was in the presence of holiness. It wasn't Jesus, but a messenger, an angel perhaps, sent to guide me. Samuel, a voice spoke, not to my ears, but directly to my soul. The voice was like 1,000 harmonious bells, yet it carried an authority that made my spirit tremble. You have been a faithful servant in your own eyes. I felt a surge of pride, even in this state. I have tried, Lord. I have lived my life for you. You believe your destination is the kingdom of heaven, the being of light continued, its voice losing none of its gentleness, but gaining a new, somber tone. But there is a truth you have refused to see. There is a sin you have allowed to fester in your heart, believing it was righteousness. Before you can be judged, you must see the path you were truly walking. In an instant, the beautiful, warm light vanished. The peace was ripped away from me, replaced by a chilling cold. The blackness returned, but this time it was not empty. It was heavy, filled with a sense of dread and sorrow so immense it felt like a physical weight. The landscape around me began to form. It was a world of gray twilight, under a sky the color of a bruise. There were no flames, no pits of fire like in the old paintings, The horror here was different. It was a place of endless, agonizing regret. I saw souls, millions of them, wandering through a desolate, barren land. They were not screaming from physical torture. Their torment was in their minds, in their hearts. Each soul was trapped in a loop, forced to endlessly relive a moment from their life. And then I recognized them. These were not murderers or thieves. They were Christians. I saw a woman I knew, Sister Mary, from a neighboring church. She was known for her generosity, always the first to donate to a cause. In her loop, she was standing at her front door. A poor family, new to the country and with nothing, was asking for help. In life, she had given them a small bag of canned goods from her pantry and then closed the door, feeling proud of her charity. But now, she was forced to feel what she had ignored: the deep, gnawing hunger in the children's bellies, the shame in the father's eyes, the cold despair in the mother's heart. She was forced to see that her gift was not from love, but from a desire to be seen as charitable. She wailed, not from pain, but from the unbearable weight of her missed opportunity to truly love. The being of light was beside me again. She believed her donations were enough, the voice said softly, but her heart was closed. She gave from her excess, not from her heart. She saw these people as a task for her to complete, not as children of God worthy of her genuine compassion. My own heart grew cold with a dawning fear. How many times had I done the same? I gave my tithe, yes, but did I truly care about where it went? Or was I just checking a box on my Christian checklist? The guide led me onward, deeper into this realm of sorrow. I saw a man who had been a famous preacher. On earth, his sermons on God's grace had moved thousands. Here he was trapped on a stage in front of a vast, empty auditorium. He was forced to preach his sermons over and over, but now his own words of grace and forgiveness mocked him. He could speak them, but he could not feel them. He had preached a grace he never truly accepted for others who were different from him. In his heart, he had secretly despised pastors of other denominations, believing his doctrine was the only pure one. His torment was to be surrounded by the truth of God's love, but to be forever unable to receive it because of the pride that had walled off his heart. "Why?" I cried out, my spirit aching at the sight. "He brought so many to Christ." "He brought people to his church, to his doctrine, to his own fame," the messenger replied. "He loved the applause of men more than the quiet approval of God. He built a kingdom with his own name on the throne, not the kingdom of heaven. This is the sin that goes unseen by so many of your brothers and sisters, Samuel. It is the sin of pride, dressed in the robes of righteousness." Then the guide turned me and made me look at a scene that shattered me completely. I saw myself. I was standing in the church parking lot. The young man with the tattoos was trying to start his old, beaten-up car. It was clear he was having trouble. I watched myself glance over, feel a brief pang of annoyance that I might be late for dinner, and then get in my car and drive away. I had justified it. He'll figure it out, I had thought. I'm busy. But now, I was forced to feel what he felt. The shame of his poverty. The loneliness of being new and having no one to turn to. The flicker of hope he felt when he saw me, a deacon, look his way, and the crushing disappointment when I turned away. I felt his quiet prayer. God, I thought this was supposed to be a family. A sob of pure agony tore through my spirit. It wasn't just that I had failed to help him, it was that I had failed to see him. To me, he was an inconvenience, not a brother in Christ crying out for help. My pride, my schedule, my clean hands were more important than his humanity. "This is the sin," the voice of the messenger echoed in the desolate air. "It is the root of all others. Pride. The belief that you are good enough on your own. The belief that your service, your prayers, your tithes are a payment for salvation. They are not. They are meant to be the fruit of salvation, born from a heart overflowing with love and humility. Many believe that as long as they avoid the big sins, adultery, theft, murder, they are safe. But the sin that poisons the soul from the inside out is the quiet judgment, the cold heart, the hand that is not extended, the love that is not given. It is the sin of seeing your faith as a badge of honor, rather than a call to kneel and wash the feet of others. I fell to my spiritual knees, weeping. "I am guilty," I choked out. "I am so guilty. I thought I was so good, so righteous, but my heart is a stone. I am no better than any of them. Is there no hope? Is this my end?" The crushing despair of that place began to close in on me. I understood now. Hell wasn't just a punishment. It was the final, eternal destination for a heart that had refused to truly love. It was a place devoid of God's presence, because a proud heart leaves no room for Him. As I braced for my own eternal loop of regret to begin, the scene shifted once more. The gray twilight dissolved, and the overwhelming, beautiful light returned. The sorrow was washed away by a wave of love so profound and absolute that it felt like being reborn. I was standing in a place of indescribable beauty, a garden of light and peace. And then I saw Him. Jesus stood before me. There was no crown of thorns or bleeding wounds. His face was radiant, and His eyes held all the love and all the sorrow in the universe. He looked at me, and I felt completely known, completely exposed, yet completely and unconditionally loved. "My child," He said, and His voice was the sound of home. "You have seen the truth." "I am lost," I whispered, unable to look at Him. "I am a hypocrite. My whole life has been a lie." He knelt before me, and it was I who felt like the messenger now, humbled before true holiness. "I did not show you this to condemn you," He said gently. "I showed you this because I love you. The path you are on leads to that darkness. Many are on that path, and they sing my name as they walk it. They build great churches, they do mighty works, but their hearts are far from me. They have forgotten my most important commandments, to love God with all your heart, and to love your neighbor as yourself, not just the neighbors you like, or the ones who look like you. Every single one." He looked into my soul. "Faith without works of love is dead, and works without a heart of love are just noise. Pride tells you that you are the judge. Humility reminds you that I am. Pride tells you to count the sins of others. Humility tells you to confess your own. Pride builds walls. Love builds bridges." Tears flowed from my spiritual eyes. "What must I do?" "Go back," He said, His voice full of loving authority. "Your time is not yet over. Go back and tell them to look inside their own hearts. Tell them to tear down the pride that makes them feel safe, and to replace it with a desperate, humble love for me and for everyone they meet. Tell them that the gate to heaven is narrow, not because I am a cruel gatekeeper, but because a heart swollen with pride cannot fit through it. Only a humble, loving, and repentant heart can enter." He reached out and touched my spirit, and a jolt of pure life shot through me. "Live now, Samuel, and this time, truly live for me." The world exploded in a flash of white, and I was ripped back into my body with a violent gasp. I tasted blood. I felt 1,000 points of stabbing pain. I heard the frantic sounds of paramedics, the whine of a siren, and a woman's voice, my Sarah, crying my name. I opened my eyes to the blinking lights of the ambulance. My body was broken, but for the first time in my entire life, my spirit felt whole. My recovery was long and painful. I spent months in the hospital and in physical therapy, but during that time, something inside me was healing and growing. The old Samuel, the proud deacon, was gone. In his place was a man who was broken, humbled, and overwhelmed with a love he had never known. When I finally returned to church, people were shocked by the change. I resigned as a deacon. I stopped leading the Bible study. Instead, I just sat in the back. I sought out the young man with the tattoos. I took him out for coffee, and I apologized. I told him I had been a proud fool and asked him to forgive me. Tears filled his eyes as he told me he had almost given up on church entirely. We became friends. I started spending my time at the local homeless shelter. I didn't organize events. I washed dishes. I cleaned toilets. I sat with the men and women there and listened to their stories. I didn't see them as projects anymore. I saw them as my family, as people Jesus loved with a fierce passion. My wife, Sarah, saw the change in me, and her own beautiful heart blossomed even more. Together, we started living a faith that wasn't about being seen, but about seeing others. Now, I share my story, not with pride, but with a trembling urgency. I am no one special. I am just a man who was given a terrifying, beautiful glimpse of the truth. The one sin that leads so many of us who call ourselves Christians toward an eternity we never thought possible is subtle. It hides behind our good deeds, it whispers in our prayers, and it puffs up our chests in our service. It is the pride that allows us to believe we are good people, separate and better than the sinners of the world. It is the sin of a clean hand and a cold heart. What can be done? The answer is simple, but it requires a lifetime of practice. Look in the mirror and ask for forgiveness for the judgments you made that day. When you pray, don't just ask for blessings. Ask God to break your heart for the things that break His. When you have the opportunity to help someone, stop and do it. Not for the reward, not to feel good about yourself, but simply because there is a human being in front of you who is loved by God. Trade your pride for humility. Trade your judgment for compassion. Because in the end, we will not be asked how many church services we attended or how many rules we followed. We will be asked how much we loved. And the answer to that question is the only thing that will determine where we spend eternity. Don't find out the truth when it's too late. Start now. Open your heart before the light fades. Amen. Thanks for watching and sharing with your friends, family, and loved ones. Shalom.